All right, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Howard,
Here.
Redland,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Joel.
Here.
All right, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everybody. Everybody signed up for public comment this evening? No? Okay, well, let's move on to the consent agenda. We have 3/6/23 commission meeting minutes and the appropriation ordinances 2023-06, 2023-06A, and 2023-P06. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about any of those?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items A and B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Redland,
I'll second.
a second by Commissioner Howard. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Redland,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Okay, we have no presentations or proclamations, so we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. We have Resolution 1612 regarding the KDOT cost share grant application. Kent?
Mayor, members of the commission, last year we submitted a grant application for the KDOT cost share program in order to do a project on Caldwell Avenue. They do have these projects actually biannually, but the main one is annually. And talked with Andrew Bruner with EBH Engineering about the actual application. And he completed a revision of the cost estimates. And I guess I would ask Andrew to step up just for a second to explain that.
So we scaled back the scope of the project to one, not only look more appealing to the selection committee. What we've seen in the past is the lower dollar projects typically get funded. So if we could scale back the project, show a lower dollar amount, but then the project still be beneficial for the city, that's what we did. And so in the estimate you have is basically just the driving lanes are the middle 26 feet, and then basically at each where each cross street comes in, doing the asphalt there as well, and leaving out the parking lanes up along the edge. I was a little hesitant to take out a bunch of the patching. We know there's spots they'll have to patch right now, but those could come more evident as they would run over those spots with the mill. Or we could have more, just blowouts, bad spots show up during the project as well. So I don't want to just throw all that out the window, where before we were mostly just going to patch on the edge. So the difference, I think, in last year and what we're turning in this year is about a little over $150,000 difference reduction in project costs. So I guess, do you guys have any questions?
So it's 26 feet in the middle, you said?
Yep.
So how much does that leave on the edge?
10 feet on each
10
side.
feet on each side.
Yeah, it's about 46 feet wide, Caldwell is, from the curb to curb.
And then on the intersections, is that
We do the
curb
same.
to curb on the intersections, or?
Yeah, so we'd go what we call end to radius to end to radius. Where the gutters start, the gutter pan starts at each intersection. We'd go from the north and south at each intersection there. So.
Do you have any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Andrew.
Okay, what's everybody's thoughts?
It'd be nice to do the whole thing.
Yeah, it would, for sure. I mean, I have a hard time picturing just visually what it would look like, main road that has middle 2/3 of it, nice and fresh, and then the outside edges being older, you know, just trying to think of how it looks like at a visual perspective. You know, as far as a functional perspective, I mean, it's the middle that gets all the use, or the majority of it anyway. So functionally, I don't imagine that would be an issue. It would just be a matter of if everybody's okay with the way it would look visually if we went that way.
But there's a lot of spots on the parking side that are really getting bad. Could we shorten it up and not do all the blocks?
We did it,
We could scale it back, but one thing I talked to Ken about, what I think hurt us on our last application was just the fact that we already received a fairly substantial cost share grant a couple of years ago when we did Second Street and 17th Street. And with that being a primary question that they asked on the application, I kind of wondered if that wasn't going to be something that held us back from being funded before, so that's why. The idea was, like I said, the smaller projects, the more they can spread money around, the more they can
Right.
show that, oh yeah, we care about it here, we care about it here and here. That's kind of what they're looking for, so. That was the idea behind the scope reduction and then also the cost reduction.
I might say also that you'll still need a chip seal done on it, so virtually, it's all gonna look one road after the chip seal, after it's initially done, so. The side will have to be patched, obviously, before the chip seal's done.
So you're saying the chip seal would be done pretty immediately after the project is completed?
It could be,
Or
it could be a
would it
matter of
be-
scheduling it, yeah.
Yeah, couple years out.
Are there other places in town where we've done something like this before? Where we've only done the middle part of the road but left the sides undone?
It's been the opposite, I think.
Yeah, at least in my time doing all the projects here, I don't remember where we've ever done just the middle.
Mhm.
Even down on KDOT highway, that's usually what pushes the issue is on KDOT, when all of your KDOT highways, when that kind of reconstruction, they allow us to work involved. I don't think we have to, done just the middle section.
I guess if we think that the edges are structurally sound enough to withstand many more years of use and abuse, with just patching and overlay, I don't have an issue with moving forward with just the way it is, but that's my thoughts.
Well, if we shortened it, then where would we shorten it to? That's my concern.
Yeah,
What streets would we shorten it completely?
You could do 10 to 15 or 17 to 12 or something like that, but it'd be hard to decide
Yeah.
which is which. And then you'd have those two left over, and then it'd be hard to get that through it.
If there was a recommendation, if you wanted to shorten it, we'd start at 10th and move back probably towards Caldwell, that way then you wouldn't end up without that trip. One's done, or one's in okay shape and one's.
yeah.
Have you done anything like this in other towns?
Yeah, we've done on KDOT highways before where we've taken, for example, like break out and put concrete just in the driving lanes.
Like I said, we work with a couple towns down south that KDOT kind of forces us to do a C-foot job, do a mill and overlay through town. They won't pay for the parking lot. You know, we can't use that C-foot money for that, and so town does not have the money. With some of those towns, we're talking, you know, probably 10 to 20 blocks worth of, and so there's no way they can afford to do all that year either, so we had to do
Yeah.
this. And yes, there are spots where, you know, a couple years later, you go see blowout patches happening. Even the parking there is, it's something I guess you guys have to weigh. You know, it's an aesthetic thing and a structural thing. Unless, so not remembering that, there's not a lot of heavy vehicle parking through this stretch. I mean, maybe on that south end, might be the only spot, right?
Yeah, also, because all the trash trucks are coming through on the alleys that we.
So theoretically, those parking lanes are only seeing like lighter weight vehicles, they're not seeing like, you know, heavyweight trash trucks and like stuff like
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve resolution 1612, the KDOT cost share grant application.
I'll second that.
I have a second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Redmond.
Yes.
All right, thank you, guys. Okay, let's move on to formal actions, starting with A, the renewal of a property vehicle liability insurance. Kent?
And I will defer to our broker. We had a good discussion. We put some information in your packet that she'll have some additional information for you as far as Jackie Livingood from Eklund Insurance.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So Jake said I had 2 hours. He asked I keep it under that. I said I could manage that. So, thanks again for having me. I love to come and talk to you guys. Some years are funner than others.
Yeah.
I always kind of like to tell you something, and I know last year I kind of told you the history of Eklund Insurance in the city. It's been there for a long time in EMC. Every year I do try to go find a company or companies that write cities. They are few and far between. Philadelphia writes cities, Travelers write cities. Travelers did come out here, I think 3 years ago, and inspected the power plant, and they're like, nope. So when I contacted them this year, again, they're like, well, if they overhauled their power plant, we'd be happy to look at it. And I'm like, no, sorry. And they're like, not interested. Philadelphia, not interested at all because of the power plant. We did have Seville, I think 4 years ago, which was a broker, and they basically pieced the business out. Like the property was with Nationwide, and the liability was with another company, and the law enforcement another company. But there's 2 reasons I really don't like that. One is I'm no longer your advocate because I have to go to the broker to get them to advocate for you if there's a bad claim situation. And secondly, when you break your coverage up like that, there's always gaps. And there's not supposed to be, but for example, an unloading claim should come off of your business auto, but depending where that claim happens, it might come off the liability. So when you have 2 separate carriers, they both find a reason not to cover it. So if it's all together, well, they don't have a choice. So I always say staying with one company is better. But so I didn't have any luck on the quoting stuff. I did get a notice this week. There's another carrier that I never heard of that is starting to look at cities. So I kept the information for next year. I'll reach out to them, see that. So with that, let's open your packet and we can talk about that spreadsheet. Deductibles stayed the same. Limits stayed the same. So as you're looking at the general liability there, those limits are all the same. As you can see, it went up. Same way with the auto liability. I should say nothing here stayed the same except your crime. I'll just make it easy. It stayed the same. It's the cheapest premium you have. It's $111. So anyway, the auto liability went up. We did add the new van, and we added 2 new Explorers toward the end of the year. The new van was because of the claim on the old van. The crime, like I said, it's the same. And then we get down to the property, where's the big increase. You'll notice that the blanket building property went from 41 million to 47 million. So EMC did send a person out here before renewal. They did inspect all the buildings and came up with their new estimators. So like on your homes have an inflation guard on them, right? Like 4 to 6%. They automatically go up every year. But you may have found out this past year, even on your homeowners, that inflation hasn't been enough to keep up with what's happening with material costs, labor costs. On commercial properties like this, they don't really have an inflation rider. They have underwriters that come in and go, well, we're gonna increase all their property by X amount this year, or we're gonna go out and we're gonna look at every property and come up with a new value. So that's what EMC did this year. They periodically do it. They don't tell you, they just come and do it. They looked at all the buildings, came up with new values. When I was here with Kent and Mary, we did talk about specific buildings or structures, I should say, not all buildings, because even me, I was like, okay, so this one really went up. But Mary and Kent both go, no, that's what it costs to put one of those up. So I feel that they felt the building values were good. So then you get back to the output coverage. That's your power plant. And again, same way, it went from 30 million to 49.
Do you know when the last time they came out and evaluated that was?
So I know they were out here, oh, is there a date on this? You know, we haven't had the power plant insured forever. That is one thing that we wrote probably 10 or 15 years ago when equipment breakdown became a coverage that insurance companies would insure. We wrote that power plant. So they came out initially then, and I know they came out, I'm going to say 2014 when they made this really nice map. And they're coming out again, or they have.
They're supposed to, they scheduled a day, and then they have back out from that day.
Okay.
Just getting a little bit so, still waiting.
Okay. So they really come through and do a whole walkthrough with Dustin on that power plant. And again, you're just seeing the blanket limit, but each individual building does have its own limit. Each individual building, if there is contents, has its own limit as well. If you flip the page, you flip over to the contractor's equipment, which is just a scheduled list that you guys have given me, and that's your values. And then down to the law enforcement liability, the in practice liability, and then the cyber. So again, the cyber is not with EMC. We talked about this last year. It's better to have that non-admitted carrier. Again, I'm sure you guys know this, cyber claims are on the rise, so of course, so is the insurance premium. And I looked around for something better on that too, and it's good coverage, and I couldn't come up with that premium to get a $3 million liability, so I just left it where it was. If you flip the page, just a few things again about EMC. Mainly, I know the attorney defense program, we talked about it, Kent uses it. You get so many free hours with an attorney a year. They also have a nurse on call program, which I don't think you guys use, but literally you have a nurse at your disposal if you had some sort of medical question. They're there for you. It's
Like a
free as well.
telemed kind of a situation, or
Pardon?
like a telemed kind of a situation, or?
Yep. And the safety training, I've mentioned this before, I went out and looked at their safety videos. They have really good safety videos, and again, they're free. So, free to you. And then, of course, the dividend payment. Last year, I delivered a check in May for that $34,000. We did have a conference with the program director probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, said the program's looking good again. So unless this month something really bad happens somewhere, probably a good chance you're getting another dividend. Again, it always comes in May, and I won't know until then. So check just shows up. If you flip the page, I just kind of wanted to give you a history of how the property value on the property and the output has went up, and you can see, I kind of call it the COVID problem, because as you can see from 2020 to 2022, it barely rose at all, and then in 23, we all get back to work. EMC has went from a company that had a big, large office in Wichita to everybody works from home. And they really haven't done anything, but now they're coming back out, making these visits. So you can see it didn't really do much. Same way, if you turn the page, it's just the same way with the premium and how it increased. And then the last page, just some recap of some information we already talked about. Between inflation and COVID, it's a hard year. I've done insurance for 28 years, I think. I've lived through some really hard markets, but never seen values increase to the way they're increasing. And like I said, it's down to your homeowners. If we do a new quote for you, you come in, your house may be insured for $250,000 with your prior carrier. We run it, even with our own that we remarket, it's like $300,000 or $350,000. So, and JJ can probably attest to, stuff's not cheap to buy.
Nope.
So, do you guys have any questions for me?
When you say, like other insurance carriers won't quote the power plant, is it because that we maintain our older equipment in there and they want to see newer equipment in the power plant?
Partly, and partly they just don't want to mess with it, any of them. Travelers, like I said, if it was redone, they would look at it, but
I know you don't advise us to split these policies up, but any idea what kind of savings we'd have if we split the policies up for providers instead of all going with EMC?
I actually think it would be higher.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You do get that cost savings when you're able to put it all together because they can, it's rounding out the account. Also, the other part of that is if you take a really big hit on your property, they may go, we don't want that anymore, we're gonna non-renew it. Well, now you don't have your auto, your liability to back it up and go, but look, I still have all this over here that's been claims free. So you lose that advantage. When we were with Seville, the premium was comparable to what EMC was at the time. And then when we were able to get back with EMC, it was cheaper. So. Mhm.
What about the, like the levels of deductibles? I know like on your personal, like on your car, higher deductible means lower premium. Does that work the same with this?
Yeah,
Okay.
probably not to what you would like it to be. I mean, if you went up to maybe a $50,000 deductible, I mean, I'm gonna say it might save you like $15,000.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Not gonna lie, this is kind of a tough pill to swallow.
Oh, I know.
For those who don't know, we're looking at, so our premium last year was just under $320,000, and it's looking to be $435,000 this year. That's a tremendous increase in a year-over-year premium.
However, if the town did get wiped out, you would be way happier with the values you had now than if they would have left them alone and the town got wiped out. You would have been very, very disappointed in what your return, I mean, you wouldn't have been able to build back the town based on the coverage you had
Yeah.
with their new estimates. And I mean, I know it's high, but they did really increase the building values as well. And you have replacement on every single piece of property you have.
Yeah, and that's why I was wondering how often they come out, because, I mean, I don't feel like the valuation is wrong. I just wonder why there's such a gap between the increase of the evaluation, and it's not done more periodically in smaller steps, instead of several years go by or whatever it is, and then your evaluation goes way up, so then your premium jumps to compensate.
So like last year the year you guys had that bid, the RFP, right?
I think it was.
Where we started with Allen. I don't think it really ever bloomed any.
May have been 2 years ago.
But whenever I tell them that, then they automatically go into, okay, we're gonna stall the values. We're gonna stall everything to keep the premium down. Because we've had to provide all of our information to the new company, or to Mary or whomever, so she can disperse it for the quote. So in order to stay, close, they won't ever raise those values. And I know we have really had a bid here like every 2 to 3 years for probably 5 years. So whenever you say that, it kind of just puts the brakes on it. And COVID, I mean, I blame a lot of this on COVID because literally these cities shut down. Like they didn't want to do anything. They just worked from home and they didn't come out. They couldn't come out. Not EMC particularly, but I have other companies that never went back in their office until September of last year. So that also heeds them. Otherwise, it's up to the underwriter to go, just like I said, well, we feel like inflation is up 2% this year, so we're gonna raise them 2%. So,
Mayor, one clarification.
Yep.
If I may. What we have in the packet as far as, you know, the proposal has a total of 434,000 and change. And the one that you provided is 422. I just wanted to clarify which is the
so I
appropriate one.
went back and I have my Excel sheet summed up, but for whatever, it wasn't summing it right. So I added it about 12,000 times and go, yeah, that's not right. So the figure in the packet is right in today. The
Oh,
one that I gave you and Mary was wrong.
okay, so
if
it
you-
is 422.
Yeah, it is.
Slightly.
It was a little better, yes.
The other clarification is, Jackie showed us values from 18 and 19 as well, and there wasn't that much difference. So it's been like really consistent for all the way back to 2018 as far as the property values. It had a minimal increase. So again, it goes back to your question, Mayor, as far as how often that occurs, it would be. And the jump in the output was the really big one, you
Yeah.
know, that went from 30 to 49 million. I mean, that's such a huge jump compared to all the other valuation.
Yeah.
18, I think, is the year we moved back to EMC. So they just took the values from Seville and quoted them, and they left them the same. Now, don't get me wrong, they may raise a couple, go, well, this is way too low, we can't do that. But otherwise, they try to just keep it the same because they know they're in a bid.
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, then I will move that we accept the renewal for the amount of $422,038.
Second?
I have a second by Commissioner Myers. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, next up, we have an RFB for the airport snow removal equipment. Kent?
This will be one of your extra papers. The one with more. Right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know whether to follow that or not. The good news is everything I'm going to talk about is 90% funded by the feds, so it helps your dollars a little bit.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we put the snow removal equipment out for bid, and what this consists of is going to be a front end loader, and then up to 3 attachments. There was a plow, and the plow is actually what we call a cupped plow, so it can go straight, or it's got 2 wings. The wings can go like to 90 degrees, so if they're shoveling large piles of snow, they can hold more to push it straight, or you can go kick the wings in straight and actually tip the blade one way or the other too, like a normal grater blade. There's also a broom attachment that can be used for either snow or the rest of the year debris. And then there was also a snow blower attachment, and that was the alternate bid on here was the snow blower. We discussed with Kent and Kenton the snow blower multiple times throughout the process. We added it on here as an add alternate because you have one, but it's a 1990 model. And so how close to the end of its life it is, we thought, hey, let's get a price on it, see where we're at with the pricing, and see if we can make it work with the dollars we're going to have. We only got one bidder today by the cutoff. A second bid came in at 1 minute and 10 seconds past the cutoff. So I really can't look up those prices and give that pricing to you. I will say the other bidder was Murphy Tractor, which is John Deere, which their Murphy Tractor is out of Dodge City, is where that one would have been. So the one bidder that did come in is Foley Equipment. And you can see the prices. The base bid, which was for the front end loader, the broom, and the plow, was $701,000. And then that snow blower, I apologize down low where it says front end loader, that should say snow blower in the adult box. And that was, the snow blower was $237,000. You might think this is pretty high, and it is high dollars. But like the snow blower, it's big. I don't know, compared to the one you have now, it's probably twice the size. It's a large size piece of equipment. I mean, it's almost a 6-foot tall rotary drum, and and for the airport purposes, it'll throw the snow 150 feet. So to get it way out past the lights, that's the whole reason for that. And it'll handle 1,500 ton an hour. That's a lot of snow. So.
And his
Sounds
has its
fun.
own motor engine on it too,
Yes,
right?
well, it's
It's all self-contained, basically.
yeah, that piece of it, yeah, and it's hydraulically controlled for the up down, the left right tilt, and the chute is controlled by the hydraulics, but the motor itself runs the two. It's got a separate gearbox for the pickup reel, as well as a separate one for the impeller that blows. So yes, it's got its own motor for all that piece. So, also the front end loader is a much larger size. It's actually a 320 horsepower. What size are you looking to get for your own? Yeah, 168 horse. So we're roughly twice the size. This is a big boy loader. It's in the industrial class. It's not in their smaller commercial class. So what we looked through met all the specs for both the equipment and the loader. When I've looked through this, what I wanted to go through you was kind of the stuff down below, just to give you an idea where we're sitting here. So if you look at the boxes down, if you look at the base bid box area, where it says total project $733,536. That's the base bid only, so not the snow blower. Right now, you have $619,200 in your federal bank. Okay, that's how much money you've got sitting there. So right now, based on that number, you would spend $73,353 would be your 10% match. And to get to this base bid, there'd be $40,982 that right now you couldn't get reimbursed for, but come October 1st of this year, when we had FY24, you could get 90% of that 40,000 number. So what I went on down below to say is that's why that when you look at that grant BIL FY24 needed 40,982. So you'd only owe, you yourselves would only be another 4,000 or 4,100 of that 40,000. So you can get another 39,000 basically back off of this. So it's going to put you to do the base bid piece up front. You're going to spend 113 right now, but 39 of that would come back to you more in October. So just to give you an idea. So basically, for that base bid piece of equipment, you'd be looking around 75,000 is what your out-of-pocket cost is going to be to get that base bid equipment. To add on the snow blower, I asked the question, he's going to get back to me tomorrow morning. He didn't have this great answer. He wanted to confer with some of his colleagues up in Kansas City. If we could extend that into FY25 for the remaining cost of snow blower. So if you look at the very bottom numbers, if we wanted to do that extra $237,000, yes, we'd need all $145,000 of your 24 money and $109,000 of your 25 money to make that happen. I don't know, and he's asking if they'll let you carry that clear to the FY25. So I don't want to give you a false answer on that part of it right now tonight.
Okay.
What I would recommend, because this does help us start moving forward and still meet all the time frames we need to do now, my recommendation right now would be to award the base bid contingent upon FAA approval, and then we can look at that add alternate, and if we get the answer we want and you want to move forward, we can add it on, even at your next meeting, if it's an answer you guys want to look at moving forward. So.
Now, I know the snow blower, I mean, it would be nice to have, but do you think it's an essential piece of the equipment that is necessary to have?
And that's what I'm going to rely on Kenton a little bit to answer that question based on how they've used it in the past.
Well, as far as the snow blower, the biggest thing with the snow blower is getting the snow past the lights. If we don't have a snow blower, we're gonna be out there with the front end loader scooping like we do with loading the truck and we'll be dumping it over the lights all the way clear around, so it's gonna be time consuming. So it's kind of one of the things, how often do we get the snow? But when we do get the snow, we do use the snow blower. This year, we did use the snow blower out there to lower the lights
multiple times.
twice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where we need it, but yet we don't sometimes, so.
The nice thing with the broom attachment is you're gonna be able to use it all year round. There are times when I know we need to go out there and broom mud, rocks, grass, just stuff off the runways, taxiways, apron. That broom's gonna get used a lot. The cupping plow, I think, is the right option for getting snow out of the way. On the apron, you'll be able to flip the cups up and just push it all off the end of the north end of the apron. You can pile it right there because we don't have lights in the way. There's not safety areas we have to worry about. It's that safety area on the side of the runways that really gets into a problem. So we can only have stuff so many feet high, so close to the runway. So it's not like you can even take the plow or a loader and just go dump it just past the lights. Well, you can if it's only maybe 2 foot high. But if we start getting piles that are 3, 4, 5, 6 feet high, they need to be even further away from the runway. So how?
If you get multiple snow,
Yes.
it could be,
So the answer to your question is, it depends on how much it's gonna snow in which year and how fast back to back.
Is that size of snow blower needed?
That size of snow blower is based on, so when we sized all this equipment, there's certain criteria that the FAA walks through and says you're allotted. And based on the amount of square footage of what we call our primary areas, which are the main runway, the parallel taxiway, and about 60% of the apron are considered the primary areas. So based on tables that the FAA and the National Weather Service put out, you go through these grids and curves and everything, and it determines how many tons per hour we should be able to remove at our airport. And then so you take that number and you say, okay, now we look at snow blowers. And so it's how many tons an hour you can move and how long total it's going to take you. And we need to be able to remove the primary areas within 2 hours is the criteria that we needed to meet. And so to do that, we needed a piece of equipment that would do, I think it was more like 1,100 tons per hour, but they don't make one between 1,000 and 1,500. So could we get by with a smaller one? We obviously have for many years.
6 foot tall snow blowers, big snow blower.
It'll take a lot of snow, but it'll get done faster too.
ours is probably about 5 foot.
Yeah. And I think, we looked it up earlier, I think this one's 115 inches is the width. And that's actually the smallest one of this class of snow blowers this company makes. They make 2 that are actually bigger in width. So.
Hopefully we need to use it.
Right.
So I'd like to get back to you with that answer before you'd really make a decision on the future year's monies into that second year on the snow blower. But I don't think you're gonna get a better price right now with equipment pricing the way it is. And right now you have the banked money, and right now the FAA is letting you use it. I think that's probably the biggest key is this conversation 2-3 years ago. No, we had other projects that were higher priorities. 2 years from now, they might say, nope, now we see this as a priority, and we're just in that window right now when you can use that money for this. It's something that maybe would help out the rest of the city because you're not stealing a resource. Like right now, when you do this out there, you're pulling a loader from town to go do that.
That loader can't come to town, so.
Yeah, the loader, once it's on the airport, Kent and I were talking about that earlier. It's really the airport manager's discretion. It's kind of like the ARF truck. My best example there is if there was a chemical spill or something out on I-70 and it needed an ARF, by all means, you go use it. It's a resource. It's under your purview. you're taking that risk that while it's out there, something happens at the airport, okay, that's a risk you can be willing to take. It'd be the same thing with this. You know, if it was such a bad storm that you needed to get the emergency routes cleared, and you needed that piece of equipment to help you get those emergency routes cleared, I don't think the FAA is ever gonna come back and say, hey, no, you shouldn't have done that. No, if it's that bad of an event that you needed to use it, and it was an emergency type event, they're not gonna override you at that point. So, it's not that you couldn't use it, it's just it wouldn't be able to be stationed not on the airport, and during normal times, you wouldn't be able to use it to grab the bucket on it to go load rock at the shop. So,
The other part, it was mentioned earlier that the old snow blower is, 33 years old. So having a second one where it's used at the airport, and that'll be more to the discussion regarding snow blower. But just taking care of the routes when he says emergency routes, be like from the hospital to the airport.
Right.
And to the
or
shops.
to the shop, or, there's a couple of emergency routes you could, on our designated emergency routes that we could use it for, and I can't imagine that they're ever gonna say anything if it's an event like that where
You're
gotta get snow
connecting
cleared for-
different parts of the emergency network to
Right.
be open and
as
available.
long as you were not cleaning every street with it, that's gonna be where you probably draw the line on it, so.
Really, the airport would probably be number one before it comes to town anyway, so. The airport's opened up, ready to go.
Yeah, they could run the emergency rate back to the hospital at that point, and then you got that part cleared, so. And once again, that time, yeah, there's a person running it, but you can still have your other equipment still, taking care of the other stuff in town, which right now you don't have that luxury, so.
My other thing I'd kind of say is if we don't kind of go look at this resource, it's only 10% of the cost, what happens down the road when we don't go with this and something happens to that snow blower, we don't have that anymore, and we have to prep up for others. Somehow.
Well, I think the snow blower is something that we can, like I said, discuss
I want to
further
find
on.
out how fast we could get you reimbursed as long as we can go out that extra year, if it's even a possibility.
Well, and the other part in between, hopefully we'll have the airport board, so we get their part on that too, because there's also the snow removal building.
A year down the road, we were supposed to build a building. We would be stealing that money from ourselves, pushing that out a year or two, pending how we do this. So it'd just be a matter of, in the meantime, then, we just still would have to find a place to park this loader inside out there. The equipment pieces, they wouldn't necessarily have to go inside. That's not the blower probably would, since it has its own diesel engine, or at least it'd have to be plugged in, during the winter months. The broom and the plow, though, they could be left outside somewhere if they had to be, until we got a building built. So that's why we talked about, we want the airport board's kind of blessing
What's the procedure going forward?
to slide that building back in our plan. So.
Any other questions, comments?
For tonight, I guess the question that Darren's putting before you is to give a recommendation to the FAA on awarding the base bid.
Mhm. You guys are awful quiet tonight.
I think we should go ahead and do the base bid and then wait on the Darren's, whatever he finds out for the snow blower.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve the base bid from Fully Equipment for the amount of $733,000.
701.
Are we doing just their amount?
It's just that
not yours?
top number,
Okay.
701,036.
Okay, $701,036 contingent upon FAA approval.
There you go.
I'll second.
Have a second by Commissioner Redland. Any other further discussion?
No.
Roll, please.
Myers,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
All right.
The easy one.
Now, we'll move on to the next one, the RFP for the airport seal and paint.
Okay, seal and paint project was KDOT funded, KDOT Aviation funded. We actually received a grant for $409,050, which is 90% of what we turned in a grant application for, which is what we thought, based on other projects, we were going to be faced with here. We only received one bid on this one, and this company happens to be out of Wisconsin. I've heard of them. We've never worked with them. They did send in with their bid references. We actually had 14 plan holders on this project, and only one company bid it. I don't know why, other than most of them were painters, and maybe they couldn't find the guys to do the sealing part, the crack prep and sealing. Their base bid was for $245,912. You have plenty of money in the grant, obviously, so we have way more. We'll actually be turning grant money back. That does mean that if we got out there, we could actually do more. The paint number is pretty fixed. I mean, we have a paint area to get painted. It's a set square footage. There's no real change to it. The cracks, though, this means that we could go out and do a bunch more cracks while they're here. And we put that language in the bid document so we could plus or minus it by up to 100%. So we could double our cracks, and you're still going to have grant money available. So we'll make that decision as we move forward before we start and have the pre-construction meeting with them. At this point, and it does include the main runway, the parallel taxiway, and the apron. Obviously, since we just got done doing the crosswind runway, it doesn't need crack sealing or paint.
Mhm.
And then taxiway B that was just done here a couple years ago, it does not need sealing or paint. So it's all the other surfaces on the airport is what this includes. So I would make a recommendation on this one to award to American Pavement Solutions in the amount of $245,912.
Any other questions or comments? Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the base bid for American Payment Solutions in the amount of $245,912.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Showalter and a second by Commissioner Redland. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
All right.
Whatever Jackie just cost you, I just got you back $20,000.
I appreciate that. Thank
Just remember that you're kind to Andrew from now on.
you. We're usually pretty nice. All right, let's move on to D, another RFP for water storage tank maintenance inspection program. Kent?
I'm trying to get it to it. I gave you all the documents that Darren had completed originally for the seal and paint project, so.
A lot of documents.
Yeah.
A lot of documents.
Oh, you would enjoy the reading material, so.
Still sealing paint. Is that what this was?
Oh, down on page 143 of the agenda.
I finally got there.
It's the entire last half of the packet.
Okay, this is for the water tower maintenance inspection program for the next 3 years. During that time, at least 2 inspection reports need to be completed on the different towers. Water Superintendent Neil Thornburg worked with myself on this bid request, and we had received responses from 4 different companies. And it split it out in a little table down at the bottom of that page for you, where the responses from McGuire Iron, Midco, H2O Solutions, and Viking were included. H2O Solutions did not comply with the bid request in order to complete a site visit or to complete, and they hadn't been here previously. So they had contacted Neil ahead of time and said, well, we will complete a bid anyway, even though we're unable to make it to the. So they haven't known the conditions, and that's staff is recommending that that's really not a consideration because they could have significant changes once they see the 4 different towers that are part of the inspection program. So, you know, there's only so much information, especially on a project like this, that you can give electronically. That's not, they need to come out, and there's specific things that are reviewed when they come out and do a site visit. All 3 others did do that. Based on that information, staff recommends as Viking Industrial Painting as the lowest responsible and qualified bidder that meets all the criteria. Neil, I probably spoke too much too quickly, but if you have anything else to add regarding this.
Just have one quick thing.
David?
With Mid-Continent, we kind of talked about them. They turned in a bid, but they are a dive team only. And between McGuire Iron and Viking, they both can do the inspections and cleanings and painting if necessary. We kind of felt that if we went with like Mid-Continent, that if they farm out painting or having something fixed on them, it would cost us more in the long run than to go with a company that kind of is well-rounded on what we expect on a contract.
Have we used either one of those companies before?
McGuire Iron, we have used them as far as
Multiple
I
years.
can remember.
Yeah.
I think 1987 was when we started with the contracts with McGuire Iron.
Where is Viking out of?
Viking is out of Nebraska.
So they're regionally close anyway.
And they have dozens of cities in Kansas as clients. So, both in western Kansas and eastern Kansas. So.
Between them and McGuire Iron, they're probably the 2 biggest ones in Kansas that take care of pretty much all of Kansas.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, well, I will move that we accept the bid from Viking for the amount of $45,540 for a 3-year contract.
Okay.
I'll be a second by Commissioner Myers.
The one qualification for that is that we'll probably end up only using it twice out of the 3 years. But and they understand that. We've communicated that with them.
Yeah, they're KDHE, they require cleanings and maintenance every 2 years, but with COVID and stuff, they kind of backed off that a little bit, but at some point in time, they're gonna get back to that every 2 years.
So the pricing is if we did it every single year at $45,000.
Okay.
That's just the clarification I wanted to provide.
Thank you. Roll, please. I lost track of where I was for a second.
Showalter,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Redlin,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Stay at the podium.
Yeah, don't run off. You're next too. Okay, we have an RFB for the sewer main rehab project.
Yeah, and this is basically a proposal. We had spoken earlier or last year that we were gonna try to create a project like this. And I believe it was requested that we go out and send out for proposal. So we did do that through BidNet Direct. It was sent to all kinds of different vendors. I don't have that number right in front of me, but more than one vendor took a look at the documents regarding it, but we only had one response from Johnson Service Company. We had the start of a response from a different company, but they didn't use the materials that were identified in the, and that have proven to be successful in the Cured in Place project. So, this is with Johnson Service Company. And I'll let Neil start talking.
There's some places that you can see that there's gonna have to be manhole rehabilitation before the CIPP can be done. We have in the system a bunch of flush pit manholes. It's like a P-trap. And it used to have a water line with a faucet on it, and you cover the top of the pipe, and you fill the manhole up with water, and then you pull the plug off of it, and that's how you clean your sewers. And those have been out of date for a lot of years. And so when we go to Rod Sewers or work on these manholes, you can't get all the way into the manhole to make sure that you're past the blockage or whatever, because it's like a P-trap, like underneath your sink is the way it comes up, and that's the way they are. So in order to line some of these sewer mains that we're having some issues with, they've got to tear out the flush pit manholes and put regular flow lines in on those. And we also have, I think, 7 point repairs that we have to do before they show up to fix some stuff, because the pipe is in bad enough shape that is actually separated and is not level anymore, so they can't even get through it. So once we fix the problem, and then they can come in and put a point repair patch to make sure that our patch does not settle. So that's kind of part of some of this, and that CIPP piping is some of the best stuff on the market.
The did have a note on here that obviously this is concentrated on a certain part of town because of the camera work. That's where it's been done, and it does include the 2 places that go underneath buildings identified underneath the education wing of a church and under this West Elementary School. Those will both be taken care of. There's been another line that's been identified as a little more urgent issue, and we started talking with the vendor after this was completed and trying to identify and eliminating a section that won't be, is not as critical, and so that if the commission approves the bid as it is presented, what we'll do is we'll present a change order at a subsequent meeting that will probably eliminate 1 or 2 and then add the line that's a critical situation, has a flush pit on it, does it not?
Yes, it does.
And it's the line that connects to, on 17th, that's, or goes up from 17th, that Tequila's feeds into. Should have said a restaurant feeds into at 17th, but that we have particular issues with. It seems like every winter we end up having to maintain it multiple times, and that's a more urgent issue. There will be additional of these that come about, and obviously we won't have ARPA funds to fund it on a regular basis. But there are communities, and Andrew reminded that of me, of different types of places where they just end up doing these type of projects on a regular basis because it's, and portions of other communities' networks have been done. You end up having to do it. You know, it's just with all the different materials. This stuff goes inside of it. And describing it to you, it's kind of deflated. They put it, insert it into the pipe, they inflate it, it adheres and kind of forms along with the inside of the interior of the pipe, and it provides a smooth level on the inside of the pipe. And it corrects all the imperfections within the pipe as far as all the different failures that have happened in the pipe currently. And when he describes as far as the point repair, they're actually fixing that one part of the pipe, and then they'll do the cured in place that connects with the old pipe, goes through the new pipe and connects to the old pipe, that section. So then the flow flows smoothly all the way from one end to the other. So this is it's a big project initially, but it's something that we're going to have to get used to doing, even if it's just smaller amounts, to be able to do it on a regular basis. So,
This project is basically off of a 3-year camera and cleaning project, and it's kind of the tip of the iceberg right now. There could be more off of this last 3 years, but we're kind of picking out the troubled spots that if something isn't done within a certain allotted amount of time, it's going to turn into replacement, and that's going to be a lot bigger cost. There's all the different utilities that are running up and down alleys with the new gas lines, old gas lines, phone lines, digging around that to replace the sewer mains is going to be quite expensive, and some of them are at depths that we cannot handle ourselves. So this is kind of a preventive maintenance before they fail.
Yeah. Well, I know my thoughts are, and these are strictly my thoughts, but as far as, if we have another large issue we need to address with a restaurant on 17th Street, as long as we still have funding available, ARPA funds, which we would still have quite a bit left over currently, even if we do approve this bid, I wouldn't be against just doing a change order to add that to, instead of necessarily retracting some of these others off, because it is, maybe they're not as pressing as that one, but they have been marked as items that need to be addressed and taken care of. So I'd hate to not do something that needs to be taken care of just because something else may need to be taken care of a little more immediately.
yeah. And we're trying to gauge it, staff is trying to gauge, because this was just the RFP for the water tower maintenance as far as the previous item. We know there's a couple issues with the water tower maintenance that we're going to we don't know what that project cost is at this point, but as for, we're trying to gauge on those ARPA funds. So,
It'd be nice to have a bit of a cushion lift just in case.
Yeah.
Because the Tower Road Power Plant, we know that there's some issues with the paint on it, and everybody that's came out and has looked at that tower has said that it's probably gonna need repainted, but it's got lead paint on it, so a sandblast is probably gonna have to happen, plus a containment. And they said the containment is extravagant to make sure that that lead paint and dust doesn't enter where it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
So we're looking at maybe an extravagant project with that coming up.
Good times.
Good times.
I'm glad you're not bored these days. man.
Oh, we're definitely not bored. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions regarding the Johnson Service Company bid? Not, I will make a motion to approve the bid from Johnson Service Company for the amount of $223,000, $223,653.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Redland. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Myers,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to discussion items. There's nothing on the agenda. So let's
But
move.
we had
I
a,
missed one.
We have this one.
we had a letter F.
Oh, I did. Sorry. I had already crossed it off. I apologize. Still in formal actions, we have a temporary event liquor license permit for Rod Cooper. Kent, you want to read that?
The state has approved a temporary event liquor license for Rodney Cooper for the Comedy Night sponsored by Rockingham Radio on Saturday, April 1st. That's coming up at Max Jones Fieldhouse. The city has a license as well, and this follows the rules that has been set up in city code for temporary event liquor licensing. And Rod provided the information. Rod and his wife provided the information that completed the application process for it. And there's no other requirements as far as the city goes. And did you have anything to add, Police Chief Hayes? Okay. Regarding the requirements for the temporary event liquor license? Or from yourself, Shauna? Normally I'd ask Mary, but I don't think there's anything additional.
Anybody have any questions?
Make a motion that we approve the temporary liquor license for Rod Cooper for the comedy event.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Showalter and a second by Commissioner Howard. Any other further discussion? I just want to say real quick that I'm excited that the school is allowing this event to happen at the Max Jones and that they're allowing the liquor sales and stuff in there. And I hope it goes well, and that I hope it's kind of an open door into further events that can then happen at the Max Jones, because it's a great facility, and I hope we can continue to use it for things like this. So. Okay, roll please.
Howard,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, now let's move on down to reports, starting with our city manager, Kent.
You have the manager memo in your packets, also reminders on a couple meetings. We have a joint city-county commission meeting on Thursday at the Wollock Building at 5 o'clock.
This is not at all the appropriate time to bring this up, but I'm going to because it's brought up. The only thing that we have on the agenda right now, I believe, is discussion regarding our support for the hospital.
I have a couple other things that are possible, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I just didn't know if that's the only thing that we had on the agenda, if it was worth having the meeting.
Worth having the meeting?
If there's not solid discussion items, that's, because I know we kind of pushed to try to get something with them, you know, because it's good to connect and see what things are going. But if there's nothing going on in each of our individual worlds that are really crossing right now that needs discussion, I'd hate to spend all the time and effort to get everything set up for a meeting and then have a meeting where we just kind of say, how's it going? Good. How you guys doing? We're doing great. Awesome. We'll see you next time. You know.
I did talk with, we finally made communication with the director at the hospital, and I had a good discussion with him this afternoon, and he's willing to have a discussion. But as far as if it would occur Thursday or, you know, some other time, that would be fine as well, I'm sure. The other couple topics that I've come across here lately that were also there, there was some question regarding the Wollock building itself, but before that, one thing that might be a discussion topic is now that the fire department has merged together, as far as the fire vehicles that are still owned by the city, and insured by the city. And we're continuing to, as part of that insurance that we just had. But it isn't just regarding that, we just had to go through, and we do this annually, as far as drivers. We're continuing to have to list all the drivers within the fire department who drive those, and we have 7 different vehicles. 6 vehicles that get used, and then the one that's older than everyone here that we still have. So, but those 6 vehicles are valued at almost $900,000 right now. So, and you notice on the vehicle situation before, there's 61 vehicles the city has. I mean, that's what it takes to operate the city. We need those type of vehicles to work forward. But the fire department, and it kind of became an afterthought as far as the actual agreement regarding the fire departments. But how much longer are we going to keep going? It will take 20 to 30 years to change out those vehicles, and that they buy a new vehicle and then the city vehicle is traded or sold or something done with it before we would never, it would no longer be city's possession. And whether it's city owned or the fire district owned vehicle, that's far, that might be a discussion topic. So, and I don't know if you guys would see that as well. It's possible. Again, it's not urgent, it's not something immediate, but it probably should be taken up at some point. The other thing that's come up is floodplain mapping. The floodplain map for the city of Goodland was last done in 1981 by FEMA. That's our firm panel. There are a couple situations, and I just had a reminder of it here today, actually, by a property owner east of there, but a couple things have occurred in Goodland since that floodplain panel was done. And basically the Y has been reconstructed at Highway 24 and Cherry Street. Mm-hmm. And then places east of there obviously are affected by that and by what we have in Pioneer Park and how it flows out of town towards that direction. But the FEMA firm panel shows the old Y, and the flooding that occurs along that. When I attended a seminar and talked with, or ended up having a conversation, actually it wasn't the seminar, it was email communication with the statewide flood coordinator. I don't know if that's their official title, but that type of thing. And they said that they only asked if Goodland, they had been asking, they were responsible for half a dozen to a dozen counties in northwest Kansas. And they said this county was next up for their redo of the FEMA firm panel map. Asked if Goodland could, and they said that the county, they usually do it on a countywide basis, and they hadn't been able to do, for some reason, there was some communication back and forth that Sherman County did not want to complete it, or it just hadn't been completed. So I wanted that, is there anything obstacle to having that done, so that Goodland could have, be completed along with that. Mm-hmm. As far as through the state and then the funding all occurs from the state in order to get that done. So, just saw that as an issue, and that doesn't have to occur between the commissions. It was just another topic saying, hey, can we get this resolved? But that doesn't necessarily have to happen at a joint meeting, and all three of the issues are not. It's up to you guys whether you still would want the meeting or not.
What do you guys say?
Well, I had the same thought process as you did a second ago, so I'm just, the new information.
Yeah, I mean, if there's reasonable things to discuss, I have no problem with keeping the meeting since we have it scheduled already. I just didn't know if there wasn't things on the docket to be discussed. But I'm fine with discussing those things with them in the already scheduled meeting if you want.
I should be quiet because I'm actually leaving somewhere on Thursday night. Wanted to make sure the meeting was short. Now I'm gonna get yelled at home.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't be opposed to postponing it until there are more concrete action items or discussion items that we needed to talk about.
Yeah.
Might give the hospital more of a chance to put together a presentation to try to present something that night.
I'm fine either way.
Yeah, because I do feel like the hospital is moving in that direction where they're trying to figure out what they should and can do. I don't think they're really that close to a point where they're willing to make any kind of discussions or say anything that they feel like they would be doing, but I do know they are moving in that direction.
I can have communication with the hospital director as far as when would be a good timing, a month or 2 months down the road in order to have a better presentation of what could possibly and what are the parameters of that. He was able to describe it pretty well this afternoon, but I think it would be better to have the full, somewhat more of a presentation to have what are the decision points for. And it's more on the county side since it's a county-owned hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also good. He thought it was good to have, it's better to have from multiple sectors of the community input on that. So,
I'd say just wait for, like, say, give it a couple months. That'd be my,
Maybe try to reschedule something
Yeah.
more kind of at summertime. Maybe we have some more
okay.
Yeah.
concrete items to
do all
discuss
those
with
other
them.
items too.
Okay.
Reach out, make sure they're okay with that.
Okay. We'll do that. The next item on the additional meeting is KMEA 101, which is on March 29th, which is a week from Wednesday. They're asking staff right now what areas to concentrate on or what to make sure that they cover in their presentation at KMEA 101. And Dustin and myself are going through their presentation and make sure those items. If there's any categories of information that you feel are very important, don't hesitate to speak up now or let us know in the next week or so.
What time is that again? Do we know?
Is it at 5?
Is it at 5? Okay.
Where was
Thank
it
you,
at
Sean.
again?
Here, where's it located?
Location?
It's here at City Hall.
Okay. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited for this. I really am. I'm excited to see what they say and what we can learn.
There's a lot of information. I don't know. Dustin and I haven't discussed it entirely yet, but there is a lot of information. I think it's more going to be what do we focus on and what is good information for you guys to have going forward, and what can help you retain some of that information going forward. Because it was an awful lot of information. I just scanned it today as far as what Tyson sent. But did you have anything else to say regarding that, Dustin?
No.
Will I be home by bedtime, Dustin?
Yeah.
I think we did a presentation there in Russell a couple of weeks ago. and then, we're heading to Garden City after they present here, so. We'll be informed.
Good.
Look forward to it.
One other thing that I don't have listed here is that they had a request from Sherman County Community Development to have a member of the commission participate on a committee that's going to look at the business incentive policies. And I had neglected to say something at the last meeting, and then I had sent an email and I didn't have responses yet. And just wanted to check if someone would be available for at least a couple meetings as far as the going through that and what to put together to be able to present to the entire commission.
And I volunteered for that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, right on.
There you go.
I'm gonna be honest.
Service
I got that email, and then I went on a trip in the mountains, and I completely forgot about that email. So, but, yeah, you know, I've long been an advocate for having some sort of something in place for that purpose. So I hope we can come up with something good to be able to add on our end. So,
At least the foundation.
yeah.
You can always deviate from the foundation if you need to for spectacular or different projects type thing. But you got to have a starting point.
Yep.
So, and that's all I have at this point.
Any other questions, comments for our city manager? All right, thank you, Kip. Move on to commissioner reports. We'll start down here on my right with Commissioner Showalter,
No report?
Commissioner Myers,
Nothing to report?
Commissioner Howard,
Nothing here.
Commissioner Redlin.
Nothing on my end.
Okay, and with the mayor's report, I'm gonna add nothing as well. So with that, I would, well, I know. Hey Nick, how we doing? Good.
He seems a little anxious to sit.
I was just here on behalf of Scott Supply and Service and the Travis Home Weeks. They were supposed to come to the meeting.
I haven't received any documentation back. Both from Travis Ann and from, I'm forgetting the full name of the company that's taking it over.
Scott Supply and Service.
Scott's Flying Service.
What did you need from the stickers?
It was the proposed agreement for the lease itself.
Okay, I guess we were under a little misunderstanding. I thought you were gonna propose the new lease, so what do
I emailed it to the address that I had, and I can check with you after the meeting as far as the, we can
We
go,
got it.
Okay.
It was just Travis's lease.
okay, okay.
I guess I was told we were gonna discuss it tonight when we're supposed to go to the airport on the 31st.
The airport board, they're trying to put together a meeting on the 31st. And, or that's what they emailed today regarding it.
Yeah, that's what John is.
And then, once then there's a recommendation from the airport board on that lease agreement to the city commission, and then they approve it. So, these guys don't approve it first before it goes there. And then there'll be two actions that'll occur probably at the next meeting now. As far as the termination of the lease with Travis Ham, or I forget the name of his company.
yeah.
City Attorney Kling has corrected me, and thank you for that. And then the signatures for the new entity that's taken over the lease at the airport.
So do you draw the lease, are you
Yes,
Providing a blank lease that we just need to fill out.
yes, we will do that. Yes.
And talking with the airport board, what are the specifications for the hangar that has to be built out there? Does the city make that, or is it just a building, a shell building?
I don't know if it states on the lease the minimum requirements. I mean, can't be just a doghouse out there.
Right.
It's gonna be-
Does it have to be a steel building, a wood building, a finished building, inside and out?
And it needs at least be a hangar itself, so obviously of a certain size. I don't know if it states the minimums. I think it might state, but I'm not sure.
I have them specs and as part of getting down to those purchase building materials and all that stuff. And I have them on the purchase of the actual airport for it. So I think ultimately they have to come up with a conclusion as to that whether or not they approve of the actual plan, or then that gets submitted to you guys. But as far as the lease itself, we just set it in the specification. As far as size.
Because I didn't see anything in Travis's lease that said that.
I'll have to double check, but I think we set the vehicle.
Well, and the other part is it needs to meet building codes, obviously. So, as far as how it's all put together and the building itself. But yeah, you're right as far as it has to match, you know, as far as what the other hangars are at the airport.
Well, I was just, like a Dennis Paulson building, is that acceptable, or does it have to be an engineered building?
Most commercial projects need at least an engineered plans, but a lot of those are, you know, you can be able to purchase it from the build.
Yeah, well, Dennis just built this building over in Burlington, that's what I was asking.
Okay, okay.
But there's no plans, except for in his head.
That probably would not be acceptable.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us all
I'm
night.
sorry, we could have answered that for you earlier. I'd make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion by Commissioner Showalter,
Second.
a second by Commissioner Meyer to ruin all of our fun. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ann.